So let's go back now to 2003, the Ang Lee directed movie Hulk, not to be confused with 2008's MCU movie The Incredible Hulk. This is the other Hulk movie. Hulk starring Eric Bana as Bruce Banner, Kate Beckinsale as Betty.
Dave!
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's too easy with you. Jennifer Connelly as Betty, Nick Nolte as David Banner, Josh Lucas as Glenn Talbot, and Sam Elliott as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. As a child, Bruce was experimented on by his geneticist father, and he had his DNA altered. The young Bruce is traumatized by the actions of his father, who killed his mother and caused the destruction of a gamma reactor. Bruce lives most of his life with foster parents, and he believes that both of his real parents are dead. Later, as an adult, he's working with his ex-girlfriend Betty in a research lab. He's accidentally exposed to a lethal dose of gamma radiation. The gamma rays, combined with his already altered DNA, further change his biochemistry. His repressed rage from his childhood trauma cause him to transform into the gigantic rage monster, Hulk. So, the military want to contain the Hulk. Glenn Talbot from Atheon wants to sample Banner's DNA for his own profit-driven agenda. And Bruce's father, David, wants to use him to help fix his own compromised molecular state. A series of confrontations between father and son commence, culminating in a kind of drawn-out, shouty, heart-to-heart scene that goes on way too long, and a final CGI battle between Hulk and whatever David Banner has turned into by absorbing some electrical energy at the end of the movie. It seems David's DNA is able to basically absorb the properties of things around him. In the end, Bruce is presumed dead, but a year later, he's in the Amazon helping some local villagers with medical supplies when some mercenaries show up, and Bruce tells them they wouldn't like him when he's angry. Now, I've summarized the plot here, and from my tone of voice, you're probably getting the sense that I'm not too keen on this one. Which would be correct. Now, in the past, I have reviewed movies that I didn't love at the time. And upon reevaluation, I've changed my mind. I've changed my opinion and started to go, well, you know what, actually, this wasn't so bad after all. This movie is an example of a film that I actually have the same opinion now as I did when I first watched it. Now, first of all, it's hard not to compare this film with the Hulk movie that would come out in 2008, The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton, which I don't think was a great film or anything, but I think it's a little bit better than this. Hulk 2003 does deserve praise for trying to build a strong character-driven story and focusing on the interpersonal relationships and, of course, really fleshing out Bruce's backstory. It delves deep into who he is and spends plenty of time giving us a great idea of the characters, making them three-dimensional. But I think it does all of this at the expense of what every great comic book movie needs: fun. Now, it is nice to look back at this film because it was from a time before all of the irony and constant irritating and tension-breaking trademark Marvel witty banter came in. This film takes itself seriously, though maybe a little too seriously at times, failing to provide a bit of levity to proceedings. It's a visually colourful movie, but the colour just really isn't in the script. I remember not really enjoying this in the cinema when it first came out. I gave it another go recently, and I have to say, I found it immensely difficult to not DNF. It's kind of a snore fest in places. It's great that the story is so character-driven and Bruce's journey and origin is at the centre of the movie, but number one, it is a bit too slow. There's something a bit bland and lifeless about the fairly boring, dialogue-heavy scenes. And number two, David Banner is a poor villain whose motivations feel very made up as the film goes along. Like they just needed an antagonist but didn't really know what to do with him. So he kind of just shows up in Bruce's life, messes with him a bit, and is trying to use him to maintain his own existence. The emotional core of the film really is Bruce and Betty's relationship, and Eric Bana and Jennifer Connelly do great with what they're given. And I think especially Jennifer Connelly, she really shines in her role. I will actually praise the CGI and visual effects here, even though they did come in for some criticism at the time. I don't think they're bad at all. I mean, sure, they're nowhere near as good as the Hulk CG of recent MCU outings, but for 2003, it's actually pretty acceptable. I think the Hulk looks okay. I mean, considering the film is 21 years old, I think it works well enough. The film's action sequences are great, and the musical score by Danny Elfman is brilliant. Actually, huge praise on the music. I really like this score, and I didn't remember it being as good as it was. But I'm not a fan of the editing in this movie, specifically this comic book cell-style split screening. I find it really cheesy, distracting, and above all, it doesn't add anything of value to the film. It's done at the most unnecessary moments also. For me, the most memorable aspect of this film is how much I disliked this visual motif, which really is not a positive thing for me to say. I would have loved to have seen a version of this movie without all of this. Now, I have to put things into perspective here, right? There are a lot worse comic book movies than this. This isn't even a bad movie. And this is way better than some of the less than stellar comic book movies we've seen in recent years. That includes some of the poorer MCU movies of late. I think Hulk 2003 is a middle-of-the-road standalone superhero movie that does many things very well, but it's a bit stuck in third gear for my liking. This might have been a better film if the runtime had been dialed down by 20, possibly 30 minutes or so. It's a 138-minute movie, and it didn't really need to be over 2 hours. 100 to 110 minutes or so would have made this film a lot sharper, I think. There are pacing issues whereby some of the dialogue-heavy scenes just kind of stop the film cold in its tracks and turn it into a bit of a plod. The climactic father-son scene at the end, where David Banner rants and raves at his son, it's a scene that always felt quite exhausting and clunky, in my opinion. It feels like I'm watching a two-man stage play thrown in at the end of the movie, and it doesn't work for me as a bridging scene to the final action sequence. While the movie was building up its tension to the final fight, this scene just kind of gets in the way, and I think it could have been cut out entirely, or at least replaced with a shorter, more dynamic scene without negatively affecting the narrative and character resolutions. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on Hulk 2003. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Please share this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit that like button. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.